In this tutorial series, we will begin looking at the interface for ZBrush as it pertains to 3D objects and begin talking about the tools that we can use to continue to sculpt our low poly models into high poly models. We'll also discuss the 2D options briefly, and in a segment of the tutorial series we will also talk about specific ZBrush options that you can utilize for mechanical or rigid body models. The first thing we want to do is look at document size. This is relevant when you are talking about using ZBrush for 2D painting, but it's not relevant when we are talking about using ZBrush for 3D objects or 3D sculpting and painting. It will, however, come into play when you are talking about rendering your 3D object directly in ZBrush. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the fact that this area on the right hand side is more or less a docking port, because if you notice, the tools that are listed here are the same, exactly the same as the tools that are listed here when I click on this pop-out menu, the scroll down menu. So, and I can take and dock those over here. Now if I click, I can close that. Again, click, and I can close that. Texture, any one of these can be docked over here so that you can use them together or separately. You can close them for easy access, and you can have a number of them available to you at one time. So this really does allow you to be able to build a working space for any particular task that you are trying to accomplish. And when you are finished or you don't need them, you can simply click on the right hand icon and put them away. Alright, additionally, you can see that the primary tools over here for navigation and getting around your viewport here are located just on the right hand side of the viewport. Scroll, if you hold down, scrolls around the entire space, but if you click, you select on scroll and then click and hold here in the viewport, you can scroll around your object. Zoom, hold the left mouse button down, you can zoom in and out right here. Actual size, you could click on that, or half size. Perspective, you can also see the floor. Let's see. Framing up your object, move. Okay, moving your object about. Scaling your object, and of course rotating. You can't see that very well since it's a sphere that we're working with. An additional lasso. As you scroll over these icons, you can see also, whether you can see them in the capture here or not, that you get little flyout windows that tell you how to use these as well. Makes it very simple and easy to use. Up here you have an icon called a light box. If you click on that, you can see your drop-down menu and navigate through these different interface elements here. So if we go to tools, you can actually be able to see a number, quite a lot of your tools or at one time, and then simply click on it again to hide it. Now, one thing you are going to need to adjust prior to loading up your models is the preferences. Right up here you can see that click on preferences, there are a number of them available to you. Now, one of the things that you will want to adjust before you move on is the preferences. You can see that there's quite a few preferences available to you, but one of the things that I want to talk to you about is memory. Here, if you click on memory, you can see that there are a number of options available. Compact memory is how much RAM you can use for your actual storage of your geometry or your document before it starts writing it to an external file. So by default it's set to 256, and I would bump that up to as much as your system can handle. And down here you can also adjust your undos. I set it up to about 20 because as you're in here sculpting, sometimes you get quite a few strokes before you realize that you want something different than what you've done. So you can undo that for both dock and tools. So in here, this setting is for the maximum number of polygons per mesh. So, and that's in millions. So I try to set that up pretty high because it's also associated with the import. I don't know if you can see this flag, but when you adjust to a higher level than are set by default, then it may prevent ZBrush from successfully completing memory-intensive operations. So you need to be aware of that and only use that when absolutely necessary and save your work frequently. I've noticed that the average mesh, if you are breaking up your mesh, which is advisable, and we will walk through that process as we continue, that you will not need to set that up usually higher than the default. Now, before we leave this menu, I'd like to talk to you about configuration. You can actually go in once you've set all of your settings for your tablet and your Z-sphere marker. There are a number of them in here. Once you set those, you can save them right here, store config. There are a few other interface options that I'd like to show you before we move on. But first of all, if you are more comfortable working with your tools on the left-hand side of the screen, that is certainly available to you. Right down here where you see the divider, which is the back and forth arrow, you click on that and it opens up another area where you can dock your tools. And you can also close those areas. Additionally, you have access to your brush menu, your strokes that are available, alpha, textures, materials, and your palette, and your color switcher down here. All of those are available right directly on the interface. Now, additionally, when you press the space bar, and I'm hoping that you can see this in the capture, you have lots of different tools available to you. It's actually very much like a marking menu in Maya, where you have quick access to many tools at your fingertips. You just push the space bar and you can control your brush sizes and your shifting, your focal shifting, draw, move, scale, rotate. Many of the tools that you would normally have to retrieve from all over your interface are right at your fingertips. Up here you have edit object, draw, move, scale, rotate. These are all for your three-dimensional objects. Your RGB intensity. There are a number of other options right up here for your use, which we will go through as we step forward in our tutorial series.